what's for supper tonight? Hey, what's for supper tonight?
From Hong Kong. In Hong Kong for the last generation,
BabyWatchR.com.
Have sexual relations with.
So from Hong Kong. In Hong Kong for the last generation,
On BabyWatchR.com, the Republican
I
candidate
did
for
not
governor.
have sexual relations with.
I realize that this is something he isn't
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey.
We got a new engineer this morning, so things have changed. Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Backfire with Franklin Chansey, John Stanberry, and, of course, myself, Steve Doball Hickson, and our new chief engineer fill-in this morning, Mr. Tom Cassida. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning, Steve.
For some reason, I don't hear everyone. My mic must not be turned up very well or something. Anyway, I just don't know what we could talk about this morning. I'm about out of things to talk about. What do you think?
Oh, just another boring week.
Can I just start off by saying this morning that I think President Trump might be the best president we ever had. Ronald Reagan was always my favorite, and I still love him, but Trump is starting to creep in ahead of him just a little bit in my category. How about y'all?
I'd struggle with that one, Steve.
I'm completely supportive of President Trump, but I don't think I'm there yet.
This morning, the president has a new tweet for us. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea.
There you have it. It's all done. Over.
Well, Franklin, this is one of those cases where you should be able to look at this and see that if President Obama had done what President Trump just did, your side of the aisle would be saying exactly what Trump just tweeted.
You know what?
He solved the world's problem.
You know what Kim Jong's mad about right now?
What?
That he didn't get that $150 billion that
nothing he did,
Obama gave Iran.
There's nothing in this that's not immediately reversible, unlike the Iran deal.
There's nothing in it. We didn't get anything.
Franklin.
Nothing. Tell me what we got.
The way I started to start this was that, to be fair on both sides, if this was Obama, people on my side of the aisle would be criticizing him just like you're criticizing Trump.
Look,
and people on your side of the aisle would be
I'm not criticizing the president for having a discussion with North Korea.
What about the prisoners being returned?
Prisoners were returned during the Obama years, too. What's your point?
What about the
I tell you what we did.
What about the bones from the war being returned?
That's great. I hope that happens. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, it's in agreement.
I mean, it took 20 years to start
in this
that
agreement.
in Vietnam.
They have agreed to continue the relationship, continue the talks. They have agreed that they will denuclearize the North Korean peninsula, which you're right. They have, I think it's 9 times in the last 20 years.
Exactly.
9 times. But they've also committed to the POW MIA returns, and we're looking for that immediately. They have basically, both sides have frozen. But the point here is, Franklin, we didn't give them anything. We lost nothing in this.
Actually, we did.
Obama sent $150 billion in cash immediately to the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world. So they got an immediate.
What you saw
what
was
sanction did he relieve?
What you saw.
What sanction has been?
Let me finish my statement.
But you're wrong. Nothing has been done.
Let me just sit here and listen to you, John.
Well,
Go ahead. Tell me. Give me some more of your stunning insight here, John. Tell me some more.
You can learn, Franklin, if you'd listen more.
Maybe if you guys weren't such big hypocrites, I would listen to you.
Franklin, I started out by saying that my side, if this was reversed, my side would be saying one thing.
In fact, your side, and I could show you the videos, and in fact, we could go back to our archives and our stories on here and listen to what you said.
How much money did North
John.
Korea get?
Here's what you said, John. Let's use your words. Your words were there was something wrong with even talking to North Korea.
You're right.
That's what you
You're
said.
right. You're absolutely right. That was my position.
And it was you who said what a murderous thug this guy was. And it was Donald Trump who said, and I'm quoting now, he's an honorable man who loves his country very much.
And Franklin, I started out by saying that if this was reversed, my side would be criticizing it for.
And you're not criticizing him now.
No, I'm saying that perhaps I may have been wrong.
Hey, let me tell you something, Franklin. Trump is a great president.
Okay.
I think he's a wonderful
What you
president.
just saw was the end of American leadership in Asia.
See,
Yeah,
Franklin,
No, you listen.
You're doing
No, you listen.
Look, I admit
We
that
didn't
I
even
was
tell.
wrong,
We didn't
but
even
you're
tell
now
our
doing-
allies.
You are
in the,
now doing
we
exactly
did not
what
tell
you
our
said.
allies in the region what we were going to do.
Because look, we're working with the South Koreans. The South Koreans are praising Trump. The people most threatened by this are praising Trump and what he's done.
All the reports coming out of it, John, said their military was thrown by a loop because they didn't know what his strategy was and didn't know he was planning on.
The point. He did absolutely nothing that wasn't immediate.
He gave Kim Jong-un credibility.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
This is a country that tells their people that the president got 18 holes in one
Listen to this.
the first time he played
Listen to
golf.
this. Listen to this. This is what happened, okay? First of all, guess whose idea it was to cancel the military exercises?
Well, I
It's
think
being
it was
reported by the Wall Street Journal today. Whose
Jong.
idea was
Kim
it?
Jong.
No, Vladimir Putin's idea. Oh, my God. The Wall Street Journal is reporting it, John.
They're going to get Russia back into this somehow, aren't they?
Please.
Here comes Russia.
The day after Trump left, the Chinese issued a statement saying it was time to relieve the sanctions on North Korea.
He hadn't done it.
Well, he's only been here 24 hours. Give him another day.
Franklin, your guy sent $150 billion in cash on wooden pallets.
Yes, and guess what?
Immediately.
Guess what? Iran doesn't have the bomb.
Oh, my gosh.
They don't have the bomb.
Really? Tell me about
He
the...
gave,
We're not
quit
allowed
yelling,
to put any
Franklin.
U.S.
Quit yelling,
inspectors
Franklin.
in.
He gave them $150 billion and access to the bomb.
Actually, he gave them their money back.
No, and he gave them access to a bomb.
Have it.
Second of all, what did he get out of this? Nothing. The great negotiator fell on his face as a total flop.
According to whom,
Me. Me.
You.
That's
Okay.
right.
That's
Tell
your
me,
opinion.
is there
Where did
one?
you get that opinion
Is
from?
there one
Where did
nuclear
you get
bomb
that
going
opinion?
away? Is there one nuclear bomb going away? One missile going away?
Where did you get your opinion
There's
from?
supposed to be a missile test site going away, Franklin.
He's already got rid of
How
one.
many they got,
He's
John?
already got rid of one.
Did you see the 60 Minutes story set?
No, Franklin, that's
They
all
have
part of
70.
it. That's all part of it.
Can
We
you
have to
say
see which
anything
one they
good about
dismantle.
anything? Can you say anything good about anything?
It's
that
good
their
to be a
president
Cleveland.
there?
It's good to be a Clevelander.
Can't say anything good about this president. Nothing.
Well, you know,
Nothing.
I have to say, I was blown away by his insight about, the Canadians burning down the White House. That was great.
Canadians burning
Well,
down
if you
the
want to
White
talk about
House.
the trade situation, we'll talk about
he
that.
said the Canadians are the ones who burned the White House in the War of 1812.
Well, Obama had 58 states, Franklin. You want to play tit for tat?
What are you talking about?
Obama couldn't get how many states we had. He campaigned and said, I've visited all 58 states.
Franklin, you need to lighten up and say something good every now and then about the president. When somebody's doing a good job, you need to congratulate them.
I like his wife.
Look, he
I think
gave-
she's a classy lady.
Well,
That's one good wait a minute,
limited among your liberals.
That's an improvement for most of your Democrat liberal buddies.
Look, he gave this agreement. Franklin's right. There's not a lot there yet. It's a process. We have to see where it goes. And we've been here before. But unlike Franklin, I will say that we have to watch what they do. They're going to dismantle a test site. Franklin's right. There's 70 of them in the country. It makes a difference what they dismantle. If they dismantle a insignificant little thing, then there's probably not going anywhere. But if they dismantle a really important site, then maybe it means something. That's what we have to watch.
Can I say something to you, John? Do you know how Trump got to this guy? Do you understand?
Yeah,
that?
he got to it by the mixture of being nice on the one hand and then threatening to blow him up on the other.
Did you understand the presentation he put together?
By the way, Franklin, let me
Did
ask
you see the presentation?
Yes, I saw the movie.
I thought that was great.
Let me ask you a question, Franklin.
He showed him what that.
What do you say to all you and your buddies that just a few months ago said that Trump was leading us to the brink of nuclear war? That all these things he said about North Korea, the only place they were leading was to a nuclear confrontation. How did that prediction work out?
Actually, what I said in here on this show was that Kim Jong-un was playing it very rationally.
No,
That's what I
said. About the rhetoric. When he started talking about fire and fury, your side said that was leading us to nuclear war. How correct were they?
My side didn't say that, John. Okay. Some people said
it's
that.
It's amazing how amorphous your liberal buddies are.
Why don't we just take the president at his words? Don't forget our opinions. Here's his words this morning. Just landed a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. So the missiles are gone. The bombs are gone. We don't have to worry about it. I think because he's an honorable guy, Franklin, and we can rely on him.
Franklin, are the missiles gone in China and in Russia and in Germany and in the United States?
I didn't promise to denuclearize.
We don't even know if they're gone in Iran.
I didn't promise that.
Do you think the fact that we have a nuke means that there's a threat that we're going to blow the world up?
We don't know that they're gone in Iran. They won't allow inspectors in.
They won't allow U.S. inspectors at all.
So how do we know they're gone in Iran, Franklin?
Because apparently the other 500 inspectors in there say it is.
The Congress hasn't even been shown the original agreement with the European inspectors. We don't even know what the agreement was.
All of our allies are just
We haven't
morons,
even
John.
been shown.
All morons.
You know what, Franklin?
Every
I trust
one of them.
us. I don't trust them.
I don't know why you would trust us at this point, John.
Well, because I've got some common sense, unlike you.
Because Obama's
and
not.
I can see what the president's doing.
Obama's not in office. I feel a lot safer now.
We don't even have an ambassador.
The war imploded. The world imploded while Obama served 8 years.
It did.
It got worse. It got more violent, and more people were killed in the world under Obama's watch.
It sure did.
Hey, Franklin, how about tax cuts? Were they good for anybody?
Well, no, the deficit's up 66% since
tax
last
cuts
year.
were bad. What else?
Because we spend too much.
Since last year.
Yeah.
Because we spend
Well,
too
what
much.
spending went up this
Poor
year?
Trump
John?
hasn't
Who
done
did
anything.
that?
Franklin, spending goes up every year. Entitlements. And your side did that.
66%, John.
Your side did that because you won't let us do entitlement reform.
66%. What? The big increases in spending
Our entitlements. They're entitlements, Frank. You could wipe out the entire discretional budget and you'll still have a deficit.
The big increases in spending this year were not entitlements.
They most certainly
They
are,
were his
Frank,
defense budget.
because your guys gutted the military. The one thing that the Constitution actually requires us to do is the military.
John. It's
The
gutted.
military is actually in the Constitution.
It's only
Why don't you read that
300%
sometime?
bigger than it was 20 years ago, but it's gutted.
Franklin,
How
we are-
moronic do you have to be?
Because
Did
we
you
are the
fail
most powerful
elementary
nation
school
in the
math?
world.
You know,
and the only reason we survive is
because
because of that
think about
power.
moving to Las Vegas. You know why?
Why's that?
I saw in Las Vegas the voters were 60,000, I think it was, extra Democratic voters out there than Republicans. You might be in the
Look,
majority.
Frank, from an electoral standpoint, I'm happy for you to rant like this because 66% of the voters think Trump should have met with North Korean leaders.
Who said he shouldn't meet with him?
You're on the wrong side
Who
of this.
said he shouldn't
So
meet with
by all
him?
means,
Who said that, John?
well, Franklin, you can't be encouraging him to meet with him and then go on there and rape the idea after the fact.
I can encourage him not to show up in a precondition to the meeting, agree
Franklin,
not to talk
he's the
about
one
their
that got-
human rights.
He's the one that got him. As a matter
You,
of fact,
John,
he did
were the
talk about
one.
human
You
rights.
were the one, John.
Franklin,
You,
he got
John
him to the
Stanberry,
table.
were the one who sat in here on this radio program and talked about what a murderous thug he was.
Yes.
How he shot his own uncle
He
with
is
an
a murderous
anti-aircraft
thug.
gun.
All of that's true.
And your president showed up and said he's an honorable man.
Franklin, you have to stroke the guy to
Honorable.
get him to do what you want him to do. I got enough sense to know that. I got enough sense to
really,
know that
John?
Trump doesn't believe that, but
Really?
Kim
Did
Jong-un
Ronald-
has to
did
hear
Ronald
it.
Reagan ever show up and say what honorable people they were?
You ever heard
They're
somebody
all
get their
different
gown blown
people,
up?
and they all have different styles. The thing that's
Yes, he's got
common.
a style.
The
Here's
thing,
his style.
No,
He
Franklin,
has yet to negotiate a single deal with
Here's
anybody.
the common thing between, let's say, for example, the Reagan situation and this. The common theme here is your side was wrong both times. Okay. They said Reagan was going to blow the world up. He made the world safer. You said Trump was going to blow the world up. He's working on making it actually safer.
One of the best things I did in the last few days is I've been flipping and watching CNN and MSNBC and all the liberal stations and their news, and it is hilarious. It's actually gotten to be funny. We just need to make Saturday Night Live. They don't need a show anymore. They can just take reels and clip them and put them on. It's hilarious. It is so funny to watch these left-wing liberal newspaper reporters eat their crap.
I'm right in kind of the middle between being optimistic and pessimistic about this deal. And I was prepared to come in here and be kind of even discussing it. But you're crazy loon, I can't stand Trump, so I'd rather see America fail than see him succeed.
There is no deal.
You've got Bill Maher saying he wants the economy to tank so Trump won't win re-election.
There is no deal.
You people are deranged. You need some help.
Well, wait a minute. Did
Obama
get a tariff signed?
A what?
A tariff. When he did his deal with Iran, did he make it a tariff?
A tariff?
Yeah, that's where Congress approved it.
No, a treaty.
Treaty, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
treaty. You got tariffs on my mind. He didn't?
No.
Why didn't he try?
Maybe he thought it wouldn't pass.
He knew it wouldn't pass.
And I'll stay consistent,
idiot
Franklin.
in this world would have done what he did.
Well, except
the world's worst deal. He made the world's worst deals. What
Canada,
he did.
Great Britain, France, Italy, Germany, all of our allies.
Yeah, all the ones we protect. With the budget, military budget you just said was too high.
As long as we feed them money, they're happy.
And they don't even pay their fair share.
I didn't say it was too high, John. I said the idea that he had cut
Frankly,
the
you can't.
was wrong.
When I talk about too much spending and deficit, and you bring up the military, you're clearly criticizing the military.
No,
you didn't bring up wasteful food stamps programs, wasteful welfare programs. You brought up the military.
Well, given that
the
those
military.
things are about
the
1/4 of 1% of the military budget. That's right. I didn't.
The entitlements are what are killing us, and they're running
they
us
may
into
be,
the
John, but
ground.
but those aren't food stamps you're talking about.
Oh, my gosh, Franklin. Well, by the way, on the food stamp issue, under Trump, first time in, I think it's 9 years, food stamp enrollment has been this low.
How about jobs?
First time that unemployment for all sectors have been this low. For 40 years on some of that.
What about the blacks going to work?
Lowest unemployment ever among black Americans.
Do you think Trump's doing a good job?
I think they're terrified. For example, Kim Kardashian. Now, they made a big deal about Kim Kardashian going to the White House. She went to the White House. She pled the case of this grandmother who was life in prison with no parole for a first-time drug offense. Now, I will tell you, from a prosecutor's standpoint, the woman was running a drug ring, so a lot of them would look at that and say, she may not have killed anybody, but it is still a violent crime. Right. But having said that, he pardoned her. And so Kim Kardashian, who didn't really support him, goes, asks, he pardoned us. The football guys pitch a fit. What does he do? He says, fine, give me names, come to the White House, we'll discuss what you would like to do. The guy's beating you all at your own game, and you're helping him. Bill Maher at least did figure that out a few months ago. You people are helping him reelect himself.
Well, that may be true. That's actually the most sensible thing you've said all day.
Yes, I'm commenting on your all's lack of sense, and that's sensible.
It is true, John, that we cannot wrap our heads around the fact that you embrace this much lying.
That a majority of the people are.
You used that example just now, the football players. That's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
There was not one single Philadelphia Eagle who took a knee during the entire season.
There were some that set out.
Not one. They said they didn't want to come to the White House because they disagreed with his views about it.
Look, Franklin, as I understand it, they were down to the quarterback. One guy.
So the president, number one, blasted them for having done what they didn't do.
Somebody
And number two, he then had his big patriotic rally where he didn't know the words to the song. So at some
But
point,
again, Franklin, all you're
what?
talking about is personal
He
stuff
lied.
that aggravates you.
He lied.
Personal stuff that
He lied.
aggravates you.
he lied.
Personal stuff.
That's
that
all it is.
aggravates
He
you.
just
Look,
lied.
He let that grandmother out of prison. He will if he
You know
bumps
what?
up, if
He's
he
got the
bumps up,
absolute right under the Constitution
Franklin,
to let her out of
if
prison.
he bumps up the black vote for a Republican president by 2 percentage points, you all are wiped out.
He's got
Wiped out.
the absolute right to pardon that woman. Now, what will I say about that?
Mm-hmm.
He did not go through the ordinary process for pardons that their country has been following for 30 years, whether you like it or not.
He doesn't do things. Look, I don't always agree with how he does
You know
things,
what the
Franklin.
swamp is?
I know what y'all think the swamp is.
I think he's
He
doing a pretty
thinks
good
the
job.
swamp is the bureaucratic state that saves us.
I don't think people really knew what the swamp was. Uh-oh.
Appear.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, Christmas lights and bright stars through the perilous
To our president, Donald Trump.
night. For the ramparts we watched were so gallant.
All right, okay. I just wanted to see if you would stand there. Oh, Lord, I tell you what, Franklin, it's a right coming in here talking about this president with you. Well, I just can't figure out why you hate him so bad.
I think he's a joke.
There is people on the left side.
Do you-
I think it's.
You think Hillary was better?
Well, let me ask you a question,
It doesn't have to
Franklin.
be for Hillary Clinton.
No, I'm
to
not-
Do
dislike
you
Donald
think the
Trump.
man that has a job now that didn't under Obama thinks it's a joke? Is it funny to him?
Perhaps not, John.
So maybe he shouldn't have his job so
Perhaps
that
not,
you
John.
don't have your joke.
Perhaps not, John.
I
But
think-
I'll tell you this. You guys can't say with a straight face some of the things you said about Obama and then overlook it for Trump. And that's just how I feel about it.
I think
There is nothing you said about him that he hasn't doubled down on, and y'all don't care. Which just tells me you didn't care the first time.
what are you talking about?
Franklin, that's not true. Look, if I had been an advisor, I would have said, I don't think you ought to sit down and talk to him. But I can look at it on the back end and go, you know what? Whatever he's doing seems to be working. Now, in Obama's case, I said he shouldn't sit down with the Iranians. The problem with Obama's case was when he signed the deal, he handed over money to him that he couldn't take back.
And he did it and didn't tell us all about it
Trump
until
has
it was
done
over with.
nothing that's not immediately reversible with this guy. So there's really nothing lost here outside of, you're right, he met with him, and it does grant the guy. But the problem with the grant the guy something, this is a guy who, if he had wanted to say he had a summit with Trump, would have spliced together tape, shown it to his country, and claimed he had a Trump even when he didn't have a summit. So it doesn't matter.
What he has
I think
is cut our allies out of the discussions.
No, I think
And-
Trump has
and-
found
and-
something here.
No, he's gotten China in the discussion. He's got China in on the sanctions. That's one of the reasons the North Koreans came to the table.
I think-
Because he was successful getting China involved where Obama couldn't and where Bush couldn't.
And those sanctions were imposed by who, John?
Well, they were imposed by us, Franklin, but you
But
had-
no,
you had
under
to
what
keep the
president,
China-
John? Under what president?
Look,
Come
Franklin,
on, say it. You can do
I'm
it.
sure Obama
Say
did it
it.
and Bush did it. They both
Yeah,
did.
that's right. It's the culmination of
And
the
he
things
enforced
they
it,
did.
and he enhanced it, and he got
He didn't enhance
Russia. He
it.
got Russia and China both to help. The problem in the past is China has circumvented the sanctions and propped up the state. He also probably scared Kim a little bit because he is unpredictable. And when you drop the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, it probably sent a message to the world. When Obama bent over and apologized to everyone, that sent a message to the world.
There's not much doubt. If you look at what our allies think.
I don't care what our allies
Oh,
think.
yes, you
I
did,
don't-
John,
I don't
because
care.
when Obama was
No, I
here,
don't.
that's all you talked about.
No, you know
is
what,
our
Franklin?
allies don't respect us
No,
anymore.
but Franklin, you're missing
Our
the point.
allies are part of the
You're
swamp.
missing the point. You said, do I care what they think? I don't care. I do care whether they respect us. And
Well,
right
you should-
now,
well, you
they
should,
do
John,
respect us because they're scared of us, and they ought to be.
Those alliances are responsible for 70 years of stable
No,
growth.
we're responsible for that. Not those alliances. Those alliances were there because we were doing something for them, and they need to understand that, and they haven't. And quite frankly, Obama didn't understand that.
Okay.
All right, we can keep yelling and screaming at each other all day. Let's try to talk about some business.
Business.
Let's talk about some business. What do you think about the volunteer electric proposal to oppose TVA rate increase?
I think that's good. I think TVA has no excuse for raising their rates. You know, for years, you tell us to conserve. And then when we do conserve, you come back and you go, well, you know what? Usage is down, so we're going to raise your rates. What kind of message is that?
I'll tell you something. This guy that's with the volunteer electric, Melvin Holmes, Did you read that article?
I didn't.
I think he's a sharp guy. He's the one that brought all this up and was talking
Look,
about.
they're giving massive bonuses, and you know, it's not like they're not well paid.
I mean, you know, what about the head of TVA? I mean, he just basically, what are they paying him now?
Oh, it's millions.
Millions and millions. And they just keep going up on us.
And we do not.
Now,
One of the arguments
I know
was
what Franklin's going to say. He's going to say, well, would you like to privatize them or
well, we don't have the lowest rates in the country.
No.
The private utility companies actually have lower rates. Not all. We're certainly not the highest, but we're not the lowest. So the argument that, oh, because it's the government, your rates will be lower, that doesn't hold.
Seems to me that the proper analysis would be to look at part of what John said, which had to do with the usage issue, and the second would be whether the increases are close to or around the rate of inflation, because people do have costs that go up.
Oh, Lord, they go up every time the weather changes. I'm trying to figure out some of the talking points here about this, but I thought this guy he's trying to get several of the utility companies to go together and protest basically this price increase. I mean, they just have a price increase when they decide to have one, right?
Right.
They don't look at their budget and try to stay within it. If they just need more money, they just
Well, unfortunately, government tends to do that. You know, a business looks and says, hey, I can't go borrow more money. Maybe I better figure out a way to save some. Governments tend to just go, hey, you know, sorry, we need some more money.
What is it about a government agency when it starts, it just keeps growing? It just keeps
because
growing.
there's no penalty to them. You have no alternative. The whole point of a capitalist market is you have alternatives. If Walmart's too high, you go to Kmart, or you go to Target, or you go to the dollar store. If the government is too high, you have no alternative, and they have the force of the government to force you to pay. You know, try not paying your property taxes. They'll auction your property on the courthouse steps.
Anyway, here's an article I was reading. Holmes, that's the guy with the volunteer electric, the young man, but Holmes said TVA says that the purpose of the increase is to lower its debt. However, TVA should meet the debt reduction in the next 5 years, even without an increase. He said, noting that VEC, Volunteer Electric, believes TVA will raise more than $500 million over what TVA hopes to raise to meet its debt. I mean, it's just amazing. Anyway, we can keep talking about that, but I think right now while we're quiet, let's take a break and we'll come right back. Start another
You're
segment.
listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson.
You
We'll
got
be
your
right back
kindergarten.
after this.
Well, I think my dog's a Democrat, and it breaks my heart to have to say an ugly thing like that. But there's a big old pile of evidence that all points towards the fact my dog might be a Democrat. I pay for all his health care, and I buy everything he eats. I provide him with a place to live just to keep him off the streets. just acts like he's entitled. Even tried to unionize the cat. Yeah, I think my dog's a Democrat. He chewed up the Constitution that I keep on display. And every time Benghazi's on TV, he looks the other way.
What difference at this point does it make?
I know he's a liberal, even if he won't admit it. He pooped on my living room rug and tried to tell me George Bush did it. He ain't got no papers, and what really gets my goat is if he could find a ride to town. Well, I know they'd let him vote. Well, sure, we've had some good times, and he's been fun to have around. But if he ever barks about my right to bear arms, I'm gonna have him put down. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? I pay for all his health care, and I buy everything he eats. I provide him with a place to live just to keep him on the streets. You'd have to be a socialist to ever act like that. So my dog must be a Democrat. His behavior has been hitting that his mom might be Mrs. Clinton. Yeah, I think my dogs spread the wealth, government health, flea-bitten Democrat. Dang it.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, we're back live again. Let's talk about the signs around Cleveland, Tennessee. I noticed our
Commissioner Rawls.
past commissioner, oh, he's still commissioner.
He's still commissioner.
Okay, for a little while. Rawls is raising Cain with the banner again.
I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right.
Well, because they took a picture of some signs.
They did a front page story about signs being left up, and they
wait
used
a minute. Let's talk about the whole deal. The signs were supposed to be taken down after a
right.
particular date, right? Okay. Now then, go ahead.
And they took a picture apparently of two 8x10 little signs of his on a 2-lane road and put it on the front page as the example.
Uh-huh.
And on Dalton Pike, there's a gigantic billboard, which not only is up, but is falling down in sort of an eyesore, and they didn't put that in there at all. And I think he's right. I think he got singled out. Personally, I'll be honest with you, if I was running the banner and a elected official had lost his reelection bid, I wouldn't have put his sign on the front page just out of respect. Look, Dan lost. That's enough. Don't kick someone just because you don't like them.
Or you could have ran a story that had 5 or 6 or 7 different pictures of different candidates' signs up. That would have been perfectly reasonable.
I agree. I think they singled it out because they don't like him.
You think this banner
I think
reporter
they don't
was
like
going down
Dan.
the road, and then they saw some signs?
No, I think. Well, first off,
wrote a story about it.
First off, Commissioner Rawls says he removed the signs and that somebody had put them back out. And I think somebody who doesn't like him sent it in to some friend they had at the banner, and they wrote the story.
Well, he was talking about he was telling them how they should have written the story. They should have given him a call.
Well, I do think they should have called him.
They should have been an investigative reporter.
Well, look,
he said they should have been an investigative
but saying,
reporter.
and I know you're implying that he's asking too much. A simple phone call to the person, you know, hey, did you leave these out?
He made a big issue out of being an investigative reporter. They're not doing their job. They're not being an investigative reporter. I've got an idea.
What's that?
Dan's going to have plenty of time now. Why don't he go to work for the Banner and write an article once a week or two?
He may do that. Dan does things like that.
Well, let's see if we can get him to be the investigative reporter. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like Dan Rawls to be an investigative reporter and write at least one article a week, if we can hold him down to one a week.
Your problem is not Dan.
The Banner might talk to him.
I think your problem is the Banner. I don't believe the Banner will extend that offer. I think Dan might take him up on it.
Well, I wish he would.
And
we can have a good investigative report.
I would read Commissioner Rawls' story every week.
Investigate it. He would definitely investigate it.
The last question. I think he's right. I think that was a hit, and I think that it was personal, and I don't think it was very objective.
Oh, well. Move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
I want to know, Franklin, you seem to be pretty aware of this. Logan was updating the county on 2 more lawsuits they're involved in. One of them was over the tax issue with when the liquor referendum was done way back when. How many years ago was liquor passed by the drink here?
Oh, 15 now?
Okay.
Probably.
And the county hadn't got over it yet. They're still suing over it, right?
Yeah, there's
over the 2 years they said they did not want to participate. They're suing for the tax money. Is that right? Am I right on that?
A share of the tax money.
Over the 2 years when they said they did not want to participate.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And the city says they don't owe them the money.
There's 2 statutes that apply to this issue, one of which suggests that the money has to be shared, and another one which suggests, because the city runs its own school system, that they don't have to share it.
So there's a legitimate legal question here, Steve, and as much as you're sort of negative towards the county commissioners could easily look at this and say, look, we have a fiduciary responsibility to try to get any money that the county is owed.
Sure, I understand.
So they're doing their job
as a voter.
But
as a voter, I remember the whole deal. But
it is more than ironic that the issue came up.
No, if you want to know irony, I'll give you the ultimate.
Now, wait a minute. If you remember, they did not want to be involved.
I know.
The city put it on referendum.
Let me tell you what
it passed,
right.
And then the county said, "My goodness, they got this. They're going to get the money.
I know,
we
but
need to do this."
Steve, that's not a fair characterization.
That
is not a fair characterization.
Well, wait a minute. Let me talk.
For a second,
I love it when they argue with each other.
I will explain this.
2 years later, they voted on it.
You're absolutely right.
You approved it.
You're absolutely right. Now, let me tell you what's
the gap. The 2 year gap is what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Let me tell you why you're absolutely wrong on this.
Okay,
the real irony here is the people on the county commission that said we don't want to go along with this were actually trying to help the city get it passed. Because if the county had gone in on the referendum and it had been a countywide referendum, most people thought it would have failed. So the county...
So it was a political move.
It was wait, it wasn't a countywide...
It was a political move.
It would still been 2 referendums.
It would have failed. There was a lot of... I'm telling you...
You don't know that it would have failed.
I do know... No, but I know that was the concern. There was concern that it would fail.
So it became a political issue.
So there were people in the county that said, what we need to do is allow this to be a city issue because it has a better chance of passing. So you had actual supporters in the county that were trying to help the city. And they did. And then after they helped the city turned around and said, screw you, we're not going to give you any of the money. That's basically what this is. So the real irony here...
Who made that deal?
Nobody made a deal.
You're saying nobody made a deal.
People discussed it and said, how will this work out best? And the point is, there were people actually trying to help get it passed who were representing the county or concerned about the county that you're now dumping on and saying, oh, well, they don't owe them anything because they didn't help. They actually did help.
John, I can't believe I'm arguing with you about this. I don't believe in paying an attorney.
Look,
to
I don't like
represent
the law.
something like
I
that.
don't disagree. I don't
feel
like all
we're
the
suing
suits.
me.
I agree.
I feel like we're suing me.
I agree, but what I'm telling you is this is not a black and white issue where the city's all right and the county's all wrong, or vice versa.
There's a 2-year deal in there. That's all it is 2 years.
Well, but there's also 2 different statutes involved, and the county has a responsibility. If there's money available to the county, they have a fiduciary responsibility to try to get that for county residents.
Well, they should have voted at the same time then. There's 2 years they didn't get any money.
I just think that's
You know,
rich to say they helped.
Our illustrious engineer might have some insight on this.
Well, let me ask you this: that the hotel motel tax, the county passed it, and all the hotel motels in the city, and the city doesn't get anything for it. What's your thought?
The hotel motel tax passed.
Yeah.
Look, the
city doesn't get anything. They service everything, but they don't get any money from it at all.
Well, one of the problems in Bradley County, though, is that we basically have one city. If you go to Athens, you've got 4 or 5 cities. So
Sorry, Charleston, you're out.
Well, I mean, Charleston's a city, but Athens has some major, and Monroe County has several major commercial areas that are distinct and separate. And so Bradley County has very distinct, there's Cleveland City, there's Bradley County, and that's it. But it's not as easy an issue in other counties, and the state has to set policy that's sort of broad for the whole state. You can't individually say, well, here's what the rules are going to be for Bradley County, but we're going to have a different rule for Monroe County.
We made our own bed. We got to sleep in it.
I think it's rich that people actually were trying to help get it passed, and they're now basically being criticized for saying, look, now I don't like all the lawsuits. I think the lawsuits are ridiculous.
If they cut a deal to try to get that passed, okay, that's fine. But
they didn't cut a deal. They were just trying to strategize to help. They were trying to strategize to help.
Well.
And the city promptly said, thank you for your help. Now that we've got it, hit the road.
Well, I would have gladly paid them what they had coming after they voted it in the county. But there's 2 years there that they shouldn't got it. Shouldn't get anything.
Also, like Franklin said, there's 2 different competing statutes here. The Attorney General probably has an interest in having this settled so you don't have more of these lawsuits. I hate that
there's a limited number of municipalities where it actually applies, because a lot of these municipalities don't actually have their own independent school systems.
Steve, you're right. Steve, you're right. You're right. We're our county residents, so we're suing ourselves. The city funds 55% of the funding for the county, and you're suing yourselves. Ones that are actually.
I mean, why doesn't the county use their own attorney when they sue someone? Why do they have to hire an outside attorney?
I don't know about that.
He mentioned the hotel motel tax. I mean, the city could pass a hotel motel tax if they wanted to. They didn't, so they don't get the revenue.
Well, I thought the hotel motel tax went for tourism.
It does.
It does.
It goes. But now I will tell you that same county commission that you're criticizing here is the one that set that deal up. That the chamber down here gets that because instead of getting a direct line item that there's no accountability for, what they said was if you can generate the tourism, you can benefit from the money. And so they gave the chamber a incentive to do a better and better job.
Well, how come the chamber doesn't give any money to the Cleveland State? How come Cleveland State hadn't gone to the chamber and asked for money?
Yeah, let's talk about Cleveland State just a moment. Cleveland State's fixing to come to the city and the county and ask for money. The state, I believe, is going to fund all this new addition to the school, but they have to raise a small portion of the money, and they're going to be coming to the city and the county requesting some money.
$200,000, something like that.
Yeah, $250,000. It's a 90-10 split, $25 million.
Yeah.
They got $2 million, so they're $500,000 short.
Is that what the state intended for them to come to the municipality, or did they intend them to privately raise it?
It didn't. I don't know that the state has an intent there. They can do it any way they want to if they can secure the funding.
Yeah, but do you think their taxpayers ought to pay for a state school?
You know, that gets
our
hard
local
because
taxpayers when we got needs in our schools.
The community colleges have been hit pretty hard. UT in that system got money, whereas the community colleges over the last really probably 10 or 20 years has been cut.
Well, it's certainly true in an area like this where we have a really strong industrial base that local industry benefits from having the community college here in this area.
Local industries actually donates to it then.
Many of them do.
And we got needs in our schools. I know my daughter 2 years ago at Walker Valley couldn't have a biology book to bring home. They didn't have enough just for classes. So how are you supposed to learn and study?
Sure.
So there's needs in our school, and I think it's going to be a pushback on both the county and city schools both for that money to go to Cleveland State.
Cleveland State has been a very good asset for Bradley County, I think. And
it's an excellent school.
It is. It's an excellent school. A lot of people in this area have
I went 2 years there.
Yeah. A lot of people have gone to school there, and it's benefited. You know, I think some of these industries like Vacher and some of these people, they've got a direct connect in Cleveland State.
But they're already helping. They're already setting up programs. Now, Cleveland State missed out on some. Chattanooga State got some of it because Cleveland State at the time was having trouble getting some programs established. And they're farther away. You know, VW set up some pretty big programs. But you can't hit them entirely either.
Cleveland State does have a relationship with our local school systems. They have this dual enrollment program, so a lot of city kids actually get
the majority now
get college credit at Cleveland State
while
they're going to high school. Yeah.
So what's the vote here?
Given that it's not a very large request, and it's spaced out over how many years? 3. I would tend to come down in favor of it.
All right, here's my problem with that concept. On the surface, I'm not opposed to that. What bothers me is these things are always a small request the first year, and then it's a big request.
Once you get used to it,
once you get started,
it's kind of like putting
a
chocolate
government
syrup on your
program.
vanilla ice cream.
You never get rid of it.
It's kind of like putting
Now, having
chocolate
said
syrup
that,
on
I
your ice cream.
completely support Cleveland State. I will tell you, a lot of things are changing over there that's kind of difficult. You know, the governor has now said anybody that graduates high school can go 2 years to a community college for free.
Yeah.
Well, that alleviates the cost on some of these kids, but then you look at how did that impact Cleveland State? For example, Mom and Dad had a scholarship over there for people that wanted to go into health professions.
Right.
Well, the college is now sitting with these scholarships that they don't need anymore because the kids get 2 years free anyway.
A loyal listener commented on that and said that the school system, their budget request this year got fully funded. The request they submitted.
Which school system or Cleveland State?
No, the system. Their budget request was fully funded.
There is a, and I've said this over and over on this show, the school systems, county and city, cannot by law ever be cut. Now, you will read stories all the time, and you will hear people talk about they cut our budget. By law, they cannot cut the school system's budget. So it goes up every year. What happens is if they ask for a 10% increase and the city council or the county commission says, we're only going to give you a 5% increase, they cut our budget. They didn't cut the budget. The budget goes up every single year.
It's kind of like inflation, right?
Every year it goes up.
Inflation is a factor. It is a factor.
And it doesn't go up by inflation, 1.5%. It goes up.
I'm not saying that, but it's not a total surprise that copy paper costs go up.
Yeah, but here's what kills me about this. We have talked about this for years. Have we ever in the county or the city system gotten anybody to actually honestly tell us how much money goes into administration and how much goes into the classroom? Because every time we talk about this, they bring the teachers out, and the teachers are absolutely correct that they need more money in the classroom. They're absolutely correct that it is a shame that they have to buy their own copy paper or they have to buy their own construction paper. But we've never gotten either one of these systems to honestly give us an actual breakdown of how much is administration and how much is in the classroom.
And we won't. Because it keeps growing, right?
Well, you know, when someone won't tell you something, it makes you suspicious of what's there.
Uh-oh, we've got a call. Go ahead, caller. We're live.
Hey, good morning. This is Edward. I'm enjoying listening to the discussion, and I'm glad to just calm down there a little bit. I hope we don't have a blood pressure unit on one of you gentlemen, so we can see what your blood pressure is. That's what I'm calling about, and I enjoyed the conversation and everything. Lee, I'm for Lee University, and they've done a great job over there. And I attended Lee, but they've expanded from 20 acres to about 100 acres, and I'm for that. I think it's great. It's wonderful and all. But every time they've expanded and they've taken tax revenue from the county and tax revenue from the city, and they've brought a lot of students in to spend money and all that. I'm for that. But in a way, we've kind of contributed to Lee because they don't have to pay city or county taxes. And thanks for taking my call.
He's concerned that the Lee University has grown from 20 acres to like 100 acres, and he went to Lee, attended Lee, supports Lee, is happy to see them grow, but he said there's a concern that they've pulled all of that money off the tax rolls, and he said they do a lot for the community, but you've also lost a lot of tax property.
The tax loss that we've got in the area where Lee's grown, I think it's a good it's a bargain.
It would be actually an interesting analysis to compare the sales tax revenue generated by all the new students who spend money here,
right,
or in rent apartments and all sorts of things, versus that tax revenue. It may not be a loss.
See, I don't disagree, but the point is we never do these kind of studies. We just get people on both sides that go to hooping and hollering, and no one actually says, let's sit down and figure it out. Let's figure out how much tax revenue, the increased consumer spending that the Lee growth in the Lee campus generates versus how much property tax loss they've created.
I'd say sales tax revenue alone would take care of it.
But my point is, let's figure it out. We could figure that out. Somebody could do a study on that.
Is this like the mayor talks about how many people?
Well, my point is, you could put this to bed. I'd like to see it put to bed. Because you talk about this and you end up making both sides mad. So to me, it would be nice to have a study so we could put it to bed and quit talking about it.
Who should study this?
Well, I mean, you'd have to have an economist actually come in and look at it probably. I would think that the chamber should have resources that they could probably put this together.
I'd hate to put Lee University through this.
Information's always Lee wouldn't have to do anything. They wouldn't have to do anything.
And Franklin is supposing, and I'm not sure I disagree with him, that they probably generate more tax revenue through increased consumer purchasing than we lose. And so if you studied it and that came out, you could have a front page headline that says, overall, Lee is, the growth in Lee is a tax benefit.
I suspect that's the answer.
My point is, boom, quit arguing about something if you don't want to find out the truth,
Oh, John, we'd have to go off the air. Come on.
Well, I'm hoping someday you'll try to find the truth, Franklin.
The only problem with John is he doesn't want to pay for the truth.
I want the chamber to do it.
That was actually a good one, Steve. Well, every great insult has just a kernel of truth.
Here's the thing, though. The impulse can always be settled. For example, I'm sure Lee University has I know they have a business department. I'm sure they have economic projects.
Paul Kahn, would you have your classmates run a?
They could probably do it, to be honest, as a class project.
That sounds like fun.
And then it doesn't cost anybody. The kids get to learn.
Would you head that up over
I'd be glad to work on that.
All right, I'm going to talk to Paul for you.
You may not want them to do that, because if it turns out they're really generating money for us, they may ask for some of it back.
And then they will sue. Everybody will start suing each other.
All right, I want to bring this up and see what your opinions are. I've got a feeling I kind of know, but no courthouse return.
Oh, you mean on the two offices?
Yes.
I have mixed feelings about it.
Which one?
The county clerk and the trustee's office were going to stay in privately rented
I think
places.
they both discussed that once they got moved out there. What happened was, from what I understand, the response, because their offices continue to operate.
Yeah.
And so they've got how long has it been, 6 or 8 months now?
At least.
At least 8 now.
They've got over half a year of customer response, and the customer response at one point, I was told by one of them that it was over 90%. Said, we want you to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that, because most people don't want a parallel park.
Well, now there is, like, for example, the trustee would still probably maintain a small office in the courthouse, because there are people that go up there for multiple reasons, and they don't want to have to drive 4 different places. They want to be able to satisfy.
Well, but see, that's what they're doing.
Trustees moving
Although
out.
they're going to have 2 separate offices, the clerk's office with respect to license registration and so forth is going to be in the trustee's office, because we have a drive-through there.
Two people working the drive-through.
Well, look,
and the trustees doing it. And what was it, $40,000 a year rent?
That's probably not bad. And the courthouse there have been concerns about the courthouse being out of space.
Well, let me ask you this. The courthouse, do they charge a rent back to each agent, each group?
No, it's just part of the county budget.
So the whole entire courthouse is part of the county budget?
Sure.
And the operation, maintenance, support, and everything?
Yeah, it's county
Insurance
property.
and everything, okay. But internally, wouldn't you want to try to set that up on books where each agency could kind of pay a portion into?
Well, actually, actually, that gets into some bigger issues. Lisa, for years, we are now operating under a kind of morphed version of the 1957 Financial Management Act.
Right.
1957. Let that sink in a minute. That's 60 years ago. Lisa, for years on the county commission, wanted us to go to the 1981 Financial Management Act, and it did some things like it had centralized purchasing and some stuff like that. The problem is each one of these people are duly elected constitutional officers, and they don't, there's always a concern about turning over control. Even though you're going, look, we can buy paper in one big bulk and we can get a better price. They're going, yeah, but, I'm a constitutional elected officer and, I run my office. So there are a lot of issues here that could be addressed and modernized.
I think it's probably a good deal. But what happens next year when another agency says, all the girls down there, they've got good places to go eat and this, that, and the other. They can have a place to park their cars, all this stuff. We want to move our office out of the courthouse.
Well, here's what will happen to that. They have a boss that is elected every 4 years by the county voters, and if the boss does something that doesn't pan out right, it'll be an issue for somebody to run against them.
Well, then let's say all the agencies move out of the courthouse, what would we do with the courthouse?
But my point is, Steve, that kind of thing's not going to happen, because just like I said, these people run every 4 years. They can't do things that negatively impact the county because it would hurt them in a reelection.
Sure.
So they're all going to do what they think is the most reasonable for the tax.
And we all agree that our trustee is a great trustee.
He's the best we've had in decades.
He's doing a good job.
He's done a
and
great
that
job.
And as soon as I say that, I think I'm in
raise-
trouble now for having said that. Times change, and we've had wonderful trustees, but Mike does an excellent job with our money.
He does a good job, yeah. Anyway, I could raise more cane about that, but there's no use in doing it because it's going to happen anyway. But I'm just wondering what's going to happen in the future if all the other agencies up there decide they don't like to be downtown.
Well, first of all, some of them have to be up there because there are courts up there.
Well, as long as we have our civil courts there, they'll have to be staffed. Whether anything else has to be there or not.
Well, the clerk,
we have the circuit clerk.
Well, what happens if somebody offers to give you some property somewhere to move the whole courthouse out?
Well, that's been suggested before. I think it's a bad move for downtown. That's
the issue here, is trying to keep downtown Cleveland alive. But anyway.
Which, by the way, seems to be doing a lot better. There's a lot of new businesses that have opened in downtown Cleveland in the last 2 years.
Downtown's
you go down South Broad Street now, past the park, you'll see several buildings that are under serious renovation, and people have done really good jobs fixing them up down there.
I hope they're profitable. Before we leave, let's just talk real quick. I know Franklin wanted to bring this up, so I'll talk about it and let you two finish the show with this. Tariffs. You want to talk about tariffs just for a moment, didn't you?
I think
you were against France. I thought you
against what?
You were Trump's tariffs. The tariffs. You thought Trump's making enemies out of France and Germany and all these people over the trail.
Well, let me start off by saying we are in trade negotiations with these countries all the time. All right. There's nothing wrong with having negotiations about it. I don't really understand what he's doing right now. Depending on which website you look at, the United States government's website says right now that we have a trade surplus with Canada. Canada says they have a little bit of a trade surplus, but it's not much. They're our biggest trading partner, though. It's pretty close, so I don't get what all the insults and stuff
I can
about.
tell you what the insults are. Canada, for example, imposes a 270% tax on U.S. dairy imports. Do you know how much tax we impose on Canadian dairy imports? None.
Do we have
Absolutely none.
But do we have products where we do that, John?
But frankly,
That's
here's
the
the
question.
point. For example, sugar. There are more than 100 countries that sell sugar on the global market. Brazil controls 41% of the market, and Thailand controls 10. So 100 countries sell it. 2 countries control over half of it, okay? And you say, well, climate, that hurts the U.S. The Netherlands is number 10 on the list. So climate has nothing to do with sugar. What does have to do with it is Brazil subsidizes its sugar to the tune of $4 billion per year. Thailand subsidizes it to the tune of $2 billion per year. That means Brazil can charge $4 billion less on the global market. So these subsidies and these supports that the governments give, we don't have free and fair trade at all. And the United States is one of the least active in that realm. So the interesting thing about what Trump did, and it kind of goes to what we were talking about North Korea. What he did was he said, I'm going to put these tariffs in place. So you got all of these countries said, oh, we're against tariffs. And by the way, what all those European countries have in common is that they're part of the G7 trade group. So right before the meeting, he says, we're going to do all these tariffs. They all come out and they say, by God, tariffs are horrible. Tariffs are horrible, and we need to quit it. You can't do this. So now he's actually turned around and said, fine, I agree with you. Let's go completely tariff-free and barrier-free. So basically, he got them to go on the record as opposing tariffs and opposing government support of these industries unfairly. And then he turned around and called their bluff and said, okay, let's have free trade.
He's doing a good job, isn't he?
I'll bet on the American worker every day of the week. And that's what Trump just did. So Franklin, he got them to put themselves in a bind on this.
There's multiple areas where we have unfair advantages over them. There are ones where they have unfair advantages over us. It's a long, complicated
We are
relationship.
one of the least active tariff countries in the world.
How much price supports does our government provide for agricultural producers all over the Midwest?
Well, Franklin, for example, you're right. We provide to the sugar industry. The reason we provide to the sugar industry is because these other countries are eating them up.
Soybeans. And guess what else? Even with the statement you made about dairy production, guess what? We exported more dairy to Canada than we imported from
But we don't make anything on it, Franklin. We've got dairy farmers in the county that are going out of business. At what point, let me just ask a question, Franklin. At what point do you and your liberal buddies ever bet on America? When do you ever bet on America?
John, it's not that at all. What did I start off with? I started off by saying it's perfectly okay.
You started off by equilibrating and saying, oh, we all do this.
No, I didn't. I said these are a lot of issues. I don't see the point or the benefit in hurling insults.
Because if he gets them to actually hold their end of the bargain where they said, oh, we're against tariffs, and all tariffs come off, we'll eat their lunch. That's what he knows.
We're out of time. I wish we could talk more, but Trump continues to live in this country. And he will make it better.
Well, let's hope he continues to live.
And he's going to make this country better. Let me tell you something about Trump. Since he's came into office, what have we learned? There is a swamp. Am I right?
No.
I think, yes, we have. I think since he went into office, we learned there is a real swamp. There is a real problem in Washington, and it's on the Republican and the Democratic side. Now then, I think he's starting to clean up all the unfairness all these other countries are doing with tariffs and everything. The man is brilliant. The man's brilliant. Let's see you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin Chansey. Catch them again on Whoop FM at noon today and every Wednesday morning from 7:30 to 8:30. Now, back to more music on Whoop FM.
I just want to encourage everyone to go vote in this important upcoming election. But keep your eyes peeled and your feelers out for voter fraud. I had a personal experience in the last election, and I have a song here that'll tell you all about it.